Welcome to Deleted Saves. On this episode, Cops and Robbers, a retrospective review of Grand Theft Auto, LA Noire, Saints Row, and Max Payne. Video games come with a wide variety of genres after nearly 50 years as a recognized entertainment medium. Action, adventure, role-playing, first-person shooter, roguelike, souls-like. We have made up a lot of terms to try and box in and properly market the type of experience a player will be about to embark on. However, the idea of a crime simulator was, for a long time, very niche. The earliest example is 1981's Thief, which is unrelated to the 1998 game Thief: The Dark Project, and it is one of the earliest, if not the earliest, of the crime subgenre of games, where the player is pursued by several blue police cars across a maze-like environment similar to Pac-Man. Similarly, the genre of police simulator is a niche genre, with perhaps the earliest example being Cops and Robbers, but for me, the first one I knew of was 1987's Police Quest, which I will talk about in a different retrospective review. However, it really wouldn't be until the 1990s and onward that we would see a surge in crime and police simulators in the public consciousness for gaming, often in some way or another mimicking the hit police and crime films of the 1980s and 1990s that populated theaters and home video in the wake of the Reagan era of politics in the United States, with movies such as Lethal Weapon, Heat, Die Hard, Goodfellas, LA Confidential, Bad Boys, or Pulp Fiction. Genres of movie loaded with over-the-top cop heroes fighting crime syndicates as unhinged one-man armies in response to America's rising crime rates, despite being governed by a series of law and order administrations. Sound familiar, anyone? Or of criminal empires treated like modern-day Robin Hood figures, similar to how John Dillinger or Al Capone were treated in the wild and desperate times of the 1920s and 1930s. I, like so many of us, have also heard the siren song of these related genres, for you cannot have one without the other. I've played a number of these games, and while I still believe Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is the best of them, and I have reviewed that game on its own, let's take a look at some of the other examples of the genres that I have played through in some way. First, let us take a look at the undisputed champion of the genre, Grand Theft Auto. There are currently 5 mainline entries in the franchise and several spin-off games in their DLCs. But I did not dive in until 2002's Grand Theft Auto Vice City. In this title, you take the role of criminal Tommy Vercetti, one of the Mafia's cocaine cowboys, fresh out of prison after a 15-year stint, sent to a 1985 pastiche of new wave and neon-soaked Miami, in this game called Vice City, to recover a large cocaine shipment after a deal went badly between the mob and the Cuban and Haitian cartels when unknown assailants destroyed the deal. Tommy is also voiced by well-known Mafia genre actor Ray Liotta, so another in the number of games where Rockstar Games hired known actors to voice their characters. Tommy will rise to the ranks of the Vice City crime world through drug deals, car theft jobs, the movie industry, getting double-crossed by other criminals and the FBI, who he is doing various jobs for along the way, until he is kingpin of the scene by the end. And all of this is driven by what will become a Rockstar staple, the soundtrack of year featuring real-world musical acts and bands, from Motley Crue to Foreigner to A Flock of Seagulls to Toto to Night Ranger and more. This game takes its inspiration from the movie Scarface, in some cases almost shot for shot, but also famed 1980s cop drama Miami Vice. So if you know those plots, then you know Vice City. And if you don't know, it doesn't matter. When I finally played this on my PS2, I was certainly intrigued. I don't normally like playing the bad guy in games, but since Tommy is a fucking asshole wiping out even worse assholes, I didn't feel so bad. I never completed this game, but not because it was bad. More because, after a while, I simply lost interest in replaying the 1980s. or at least someone's fond memories of a time they didn't exactly live through, other than through imported movies and television shows, as this was developed by Rockstar North, a British video game developer. I didn't live in Britain in the 1980s, and while I'm sure Thatcher's England had many similarities to Reagan's America, but I'm just not sure what they knew of the Miami crime scene during the 1980s. But then again, I wasn't living in Miami in the 1980s either. I was growing up in a cloistered, burned out coal mining town in the upper Appalachian Mountains, whose citizens freaked out and got out the special occasion only burning crosses when someone of any color darker than lily white moved into town. So all I knew of Miami Vice as well were everything was rich man's yachts and pastel colored suit jackets. But yeah, the 1980s need to be buried and stay buried in the past. But Rockstar did at least do a good job making it look like the thing it was supposed to be. And the soundtrack was fantastic, playing all the same hits my local radio stations were still doing in 2002, 20 years after most of the recording artists featured in that game had either retired, found Jesus, or died, or some combination of that. Next would be 2008's Grand Theft Auto 4. Taking place in a roughly mid-2000s Liberty City, the game's New York City send-up, and about a decade after the timeline of Grand Theft Auto 3, which I didn't play, we follow in the shoes of Eastern European immigrant Niko Bellic, which is a heavily implied that he is a war veteran of the Serbian War, or the Bosnian War, or one of those late Soviet-era Eastern European wars where countries no longer under the thumb of the former USSR ripped themselves apart looking for independence, or became known for slaughtering their Muslim communities, and probably their remaining Jewish communities too. So Niko might be a war criminal on the run with severe PTSD. He comes to New York looking for a new life, but since he is an immigrant in America, the story quickly becomes one of the past replaying itself. Immigrant is not given a chance in the United States for the crime of being foreign and has to resort to menial labor or criminal activity to make ends meet in a capitalist utopia, which is about as filthy as the bottom of a raw sewage storage tank. Having to get into bed with the Russian immigrant community and their style of Eastern Promises criminal rules and rituals, while trying to assimilate with his dumbass cousin Roman calling him every 15 goddamn minutes to ask to go bowling with him, while Niko was in the middle of getting shot during bank robberies, or in clearing his cousin's debt to loan sharks becomes the repeating loop of the game. But its backstory and background story of a man who had to do terrible things for his government to the point where he had to resort to crime only to escape to the main enemy nation of his childhood seeking relief to discover that it is just as bad as the country he left is extremely compelling, showcasing the maturity of writing by the Rockstar team. GTA 4 is a great game, a landmark game, despite the gaffe of being showcased on Late Night with Conan O'Brien. Did I finish it? Fuck no. It befell the same problem I had with GTA Vice City. I got bored after the bank robbery and escape with some Irish mob cohorts, and I never went back to it. I also enjoyed the fact that Rockstar finally added hardcore punk and more modern heavy metal channels to their radio lists, as I grew up in the shadow of the New York hardcore and metal scenes. So I felt more of a connection here. But the level of writing maturity would later resurface in Red Dead Redemption 2, where the criminal trying to overcome his past and deal with a world he no longer fits or belongs to plot would reach its current peak. Of any other GTA game beyond San Andreas, I recommend this one the most. Next would be 2013's Grand Theft Auto 5. I picked it up, extremely used in 2023, on its third or fourth re-release. I played it for 1 hour, just one. It was a miserable as fiery cat shit experience. I then pulled it out of my PS5 so fast it made sparks, threw it back in its jewel case, and sold it right back to the secondhand video game store I bought it from. This game is an absolute piece of shit, and I couldn't give a fuck less what you or anyone else thinks or says on the matter. Fuck you, and go fuck yourself if that wasn't clear. Moving on. In almost direct opposition to their own bread and butter franchise, Rockstar Games, through the subsidiary studio Team Bondi, would, in 2011, release LA Noire, a game featuring the direct opposite of their criminal gang empire games. Los Angeles detectives set in 1947. In this game, you play Detective Cole Phelps, a Marine veteran of PTSD coming back from World War II. Throughout the game, we get flashbacks to Phelps' time in the war, where he was proven uniquely unqualified for leadership, but is made a lieutenant anyway, and whom gets his own men killed as well as a bunch of non-combatant Japanese civilians killed during a botched flamethrower attack on what was believed to be a Japanese military encampment during the war, yet was somehow hailed as a hero upon his return home. The game implies the worst crime Phelps committed was an unspoken military rule against something called stolen valor, in which he took credit for something that he didn't do in combat. You know, worse than slaughtering unarmed civilians, which is actually a war crime, whereas being a boastful idiot is not. But hey, I never served, so what do I know? Anyway, Phelps settles into 1947 Los Angeles and joins the LAPD, rife with all the sex, sleaze, corruption, and outward racism towards black people, Hispanics, and Asians common to the day. This is a pattern the LAPD would continue for decades to come, so Phelps' time on the force matters little in this regard. Phelps soon finds being a corrupt cop is better than being a good cop, where you'll either be stuck on traffic duty or with the snitches at internal affairs for the rest of your career. And he too quickly, to make any sense, rises through the ranks from traffic to homicide and beyond until its shocking twist end. LA Noire takes its writing cues from two films, LA Confidential and 1974's Chinatown, both of which are about corrupt cops in Los Angeles around the timeline of this game. Unlike its GTA counterpart, random vehicular homicide and destruction and random gunfights in the streets will cause more problems than help, as you are supposed to be a cop following the rules rather than breaking them. But ultimately, this game is a game of spot the clue in the scenery, similar to those cheap visual novel style spot the clue games found online for free or for cheap. Yet after enough clues have been spotted and logged in your notes, you take in a suspect and interrogate them through a 3-button combo of good cop, brutal cop, and doubt. And if you don't know the pattern, the game ends very quickly and you need to replay entire missions to try again. The biggest problem LA Noire suffers from is that it is a game where you can truly only play it once, as once you know the patterns, interrogations, and how the plot works, there is nothing really left for the player to replay again. And honestly, why would you? While the writing and plot is not bad, it's not up to the same quality as a lot of the other Rockstar games that have been published. The game is extremely linear, with only spots of action amid clue hunting. And while that is not awful for a game, there still needs to be a game in this video game, which there is not. It's another movie masquerading as a video game. In fact, the best thing I remember about LA Noire comes not from the story or game, but from a Game Informer interview sometime around 2010, where developer Team Bondi was so proud of its face capture technology, it invited former writer and later Giant Bomb writer and editor Dan Reichert to its Australian studios to have his big fucking potato head immortalized within this game. And when I played it, there he was in the background as an uncredited and non-speaking role as a beat reporter on a crime scene. And I spent several minutes running his ass over again and again with a nearby car once the cutscene was over, much to my amusement. The game peaked at that moment and only went downhill from there. So yeah, this game sucks. It's why Team Bondi closed. That and its owner's hideous negotiation skills. So you can go ahead and skip this one. While GTA was getting less sophomoric and more serious, Volition and THQ decided to keep the fun in crime simulators with its 2008 entry into the genre, Saints Row 2. While the first Saints Row was a straight-up GTA clone, Saints Row 2 went about 180 degrees in the opposite direction, deciding to double down on the absurd and making a unique crime comedy game. Kind of like the Three Stooges, but with more felonies and misdemeanors. You were still a member of the 3rd Street Saints criminal gang, committing crimes for money and respect and fighting other gangs for control of the city of Stillwater. But it's hard to argue that I had way more fun running around as stoned to the fucking gills while getting ragdolled by passing cars to ludicrous heights, John Woo style double fisting handguns through firefights, and buying stupid fashions and tattoos to decorate my paper doll character than I ever did in any Grand Theft Auto game. Yes, the whole plot is to get money, fuck bitches, rise to the top, and you do. But its biggest strength as a game is the extremely customizable features of the player character. To test this, I decided to make my character look exactly like the late Peter Steele of the band Type O Negative, complete with black and green clothing aesthetics. And holy shit, was I ever able to! So I spent a lot of time not following the plot, but instead running all over the free roaming map doing petty crimes and streaking, while doing dumb gang shit as one of goth metal's premier dour countenances. I'd like to think the man himself would have been proud of the character as I represented it. But I never finished the game, mostly for the same reason I never finished with Rockstar Games. Too big, too much shit, and ultimately too boring. Perhaps crime sim games aren't for me. But Saints Row 2 was way more fun by a country mile, even if I did only play the first few plot missions, then fucked off for the rest of it until I grew bored. But I recommend it far more than GTA if you can find a copy, which you can on GOG. For the curious, I did have a copy of 2011's Saints Row III. It sat on my shelf for 3 years. The box was a very pretty purple. I couldn't bring myself to play it for whatever reason. I eventually sold it. Oh well, no great loss there. So, after a great game like Saints Row 2, what the fuck happened with 2022's Saints Row reboot? I got a copy of it for free on my PlayStation Plus membership. I played it for 2 hours, 1 hour longer than GTA 5. It was so shitty. Boring as fuck. Bland setting, crap voice acting. I hated everyone, even my character, who for the fuck of it I made female this time just because I could. This game is trash, but I'm not even sure why, because I can't be bothered to examine it in depth. But as with GTA 5, I say again, fuck you, and go fuck yourself if that is not already clear. Don't bother to message me about your opinion on how great or underrated this game is, or drop a counter review of my review of this game. I'll just laugh and point at you for being the dipshit that you are. Moving on. The last in our review stable is going to be my time with the Max Payne series. First up will be 2001's Max Payne, while it was still in the hands of Remedy Entertainment. Most odd of all, I played this on the PC version, with the mouse and keyboard, and when I completed the game, it was one of the hardest completes I ever did because I'm not good playing with mouse and keyboard. But holy shit did I love this game. Yes, many now feel it is one of Remedy's weaker games compared to Control or Alan Wake 2. But it is the reason we have the character from both of these later games stand out so much. This was a small team and small game told through a noir comic book style, with developer Sam Lake's grimacing face plastered on Max's model, but with the voice of the late great actor James McCaffrey voicing the man himself, about a New York cop turned DEA agent whose wife and baby are murdered by drug gangs because Max is really good at shutting them down. A year or so later, we pick back up in medias res as Max is standing atop a New York skyscraper, smoking rifle in his hands during a whiteout blizzard, retelling the last 48 hours of his life as police surround him. He had been turned onto his family's killers, a drug gang selling a lethal drug known as Valkyr, and Max kills his way through various gangs and mafia members, only to find out Valkyr is the result of a government super soldier program, and it is being sold through New York's street toughs to keep its ties to the Department of Defense clean, and that he was specifically targeted because he got too close to finding out the truth the last time the military tried to put Valkyr on the market. This game is so fucking insane and so cheesy, you can't help but love it, and Max's snappy, gritty, sarcastic dialogue is a perfect complement to the combat that comes straight out of the very best of Hong Kong cinema, specifically the movie Hard Boiled. 20 years later, I still think about this game. I can still hear McCaffrey's gruff portrayal of Max. Max was a good cop done dirty by the system he worked for and tried to support. One of the pillars of the modern noir vengeance tales, where one man with a badge and determination can bring down the system or an empire of evil, no matter how silly the plot may be. This game ate a lot of shit in the years since its publication for the decisions the developers made on their shoestring budget, from plot to gameplay. But I do hope Remedy has now felt some sort of vindication for their efforts all these decades later. This was a great game. We need more like them. It would be great for a modern reboot. What needs to be left in the dust, however, was 2012's Max Payne 3. Ironically, from a time when Rockstar Games took over the property from Remedy. In this game, we take over a much older Max, a burned out drunk on the outs with the Force as he cannot get over not only his family's death, but his time with the assassin Mona Sachs. By this point, he is just killing drug dealers and thugs out of hand, barely holding on to his freedom by old friends and very shaky justifiable homicide claims, until he has to quit the Force in disgrace. He is soon hired by a Brazilian millionaire, who needs someone with experience and very few scruples to head his personal security force to keep his dumb as fuck kids alive through their parties and drug use of extreme wealth against the backdrop of Brazil's extreme poverty and multiple slums. With no other options and being terminally drunk, Max moves to Brazil to start over. He soon finds, amid alcohol withdrawal symptoms, painkiller addiction, and blackout episodes, that despite his new location and bosses, the crime is the same and scum is still scum, and that he is now working for the very guy who 10 years earlier he was putting behind bars. Max is about as low as he could be and is seriously considering suicide to just end it all. After a $3 million deal goes south and his new employer's wife is kidnapped by gang members, Max meets a Brazilian cop who has been on the trail of his boss for years, as he might be involved in an organ theft ring, who reminds Max of what a good cop actually is despite a tough job where all the shades of color are gray and very likely the endings are all bad. And Max begins to sober up, and he decides to walk the path of war one more time. Using his career of skills, he takes on the organ thieves in a series of running gun battles, typical of the series so far, until he takes down the heads of the gang, including his former boss. You can choose one of two endings here, but the canon ending is Max not killing the final boss and having his new cop buddy arrest the bad guys. And Max walks off into the sunset, finally ready to move on with his life, get sober, and see the good side of things. So why should this one be left behind? Because ultimately this is too much of a Rockstar game. For as cheesy as the first game was, it was a better title under Remedy. This Rockstar title is far too cynical and up its own nose. And while it is fine to have a cynicism plot, I feel it suffers from the same problem as LA Noire. Its linearity does it no favors, and the writing is so serious it sucks all the fun out of the title. Is it appropriate? Yeah, I guess it is. A logical conclusion to Max's choices and addiction that got him through two previous games as a mechanic. But it's honestly not fun. But perhaps it is the best conclusion this trilogy of games could have, although I never played the second game, so I do not know for sure. I know since Rockstar has this title, we'll never see a reboot, and Remedy can no longer use the character of Max Payne as it is in its connected universe, although that didn't stop them from making plenty of winking nods in Alan Wake 2. But between these two games, I had so much tonal whiplash that I cannot fairly compare the two titles. I still think about the first Max Payne. I don't even waste my time on the third Max Payne. All of these games, as far as critics are concerned, received well and reviewed well, except for the Saints Row reboot, and have gone on to sell millions. Obviously, if they got me, a majority RPG and horror game player, to try my hand at being a hard-boiled cop or dyed-in-the-wool career criminal, then they must have been doing something right. It is obvious we will see more of these type of games. But where do they find me? One thing that is clear here is the dominance of the market Rockstar Games has, both at crime and comp sims. THQ fell apart, and its other closest competitor, the Dead to Rights games by Namco Bandai, last saw an entry into their games in 2010. So it's pretty clear that series is good and dead. Then there are the Mafia games, who are doing their own thing, but not to any great acclaim in the gaming public outside of a few die-hard fans. Just to note, I know of these games, but I've never played any of them. After playing through the emotional roller coaster that was Red Dead Redemption 2, I couldn't give a shit less about what Rockstar is doing with the time they have going on, and at the time of this recording, their upcoming GTA 6. Unless they do a Red Dead 3, I'm done with them. They already peaked and created their magnum opus, and I could go for the rest of my life without playing another Rockstar game. But I think we could use a good competitor, someone to make Rockstar sweat again. Competition does, sometimes at least, still breed innovation, at least until companies make backroom deals and Rockstar will buy their competitor out to retain dominance. But it could be a good thing for a while. I feel like there is still plenty of gas left in the tank for these subgenres, but not in the hands of one company, no matter how good or how polished they may be or may have become at one thing. Yet this competitor would have to have something so out of left field, so knock it out of the park level of quality to get my attention, or something similar to what I already like to get my attention. It is unlikely at this time. As I said in my review of Cyberpunk 2077, that game is GTA the far future, and to be honest, was better than GTA 5 ever was, despite all its trouble. That got my attention. I could offer a few other suggestions, such as a developer willing to take on the tabletop game Blades in the Dark, a somewhat horror game about thieves and gangs waging war amongst the shadows of a sunless city powered by demon blood and ghosts as their starting point. That would be a hell of a crime sim game if done well. Cop drama and cop sim games have covered pretty much everything from the 1940s to the early 2000s in time frames. Maybe it's time to go back into history further. While Sir Arthur Conan Doyle solidified the detective genre with Sherlock Holmes, we all know we owe the investigation of the detective genre to Edgar Allan Poe and his recurring detective C. Auguste Dupin. What about a crime sim where Poe is the detective instead of a writer, following the trail of the macabre and unusual? That might sell gangbusters. Or maybe not at all, but it's an idea. What I'm saying is, it is time for something new and inventive in these genres. Otherwise, it is just going to be more of the same until we are all burned out or Rockstar starts undersigning the future mortgages of its current underage player base who think gang activity is cool and the game is edgy since they already took all of their parents' money through GTA Online. But at the same time, it seems there's only so much these genres can do before they repeat themselves. And I think we might have hit that threshold. All we seem to be doing is swapping types of criminals or personality of cop for the time periods and clothing and firearm styles. I'm not sure what more can or should be done, and I'm sure Rockstar will make an honestly sickening amount of money on its next title. And I don't plan to be there for it. I've had my fun, and my pattern here is that I rarely ever finish these games, which is more of a waste of my time and money. Again, if you love this shit, go for it. You have fun. Me not being there doesn't affect it one way or another. I'm just saying that I feel these closely tied genres have stagnated, and there is nothing more to be had. The bank vault has been looted. The officers have been defunded. And yet, things go on for purely monetary gain. Mindless, feckless, rancid, and stinking. That may be the real crime here. But as I said, I'm just an outsider here, offering an opinion. I'm hardly a sleuth when it comes to these things. Thank you for listening. Deleted Saves would like to thank Brad, Keith Gasper, Gordon Wells, and Maslama for being patrons of the show. If you would like to become a patron of the show, please go to patreon.com and check out Deleted Saves Podcast. All donations go directly towards maintaining the show itself. Thank you.